Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Michael, and I am co-founder and lead pen tester at Tandem Cyber Solutions, your go-to pen testing partner for organizations who take security seriously. In this video, we're going to talk about when it's the right time for organizations to start thinking about getting a pen test. So let's start this discussion. All right, so there's really two situations where organizations should start thinking about getting a pen test. It isn't for everyone, and only organizations that in certain circumstances should really get it. And there's two primary drivers. You're either internally driven or externally driven. And what I mean by that is for internally, we're talking about how mature are you? So that means you're doing some things right and you're looking for the next place to efficiently use your budget, and a pen test is coming up. So what things may come before? So we're looking at a good patch management program you want to have in place. That means you're doing things such as you have a golden image. Every system is using the same standardized image. You're controlling the configurations, you're controlling what's being installed. You have those automatic updates. Those types of things we like to see with patch management. And part of that patch management program is we want to see that you're doing vulnerability scans consistently. So if you're internally driven and you haven't done vulnerability scans, start doing those before you look at pen tests. And you want to be doing one or two of those a year. For smaller businesses, you may, once you get to the point where you got that under control, you're not getting a lot of highs and criticals on your vulnerability scans, then you can start thinking about adding in a pen test in rotation, maybe doing one semi-annual vuln scan, one semi-annual pen test, or 3 quarterly vulnerability scans and 1 penetration test. And the reason I say that, a lot of people do quarterly vulnerability scans, but at Tandem, we throw in a vulnerability scan with all of our pen tests. So if you work with us, you'll get that thrown in. So you can just do 3 in 1. You'll have a really great program that's good to start building off of at that point. So other things we want to see as well is you have good solid configurations, like you're doing least privilege. One of the things we often see with organizations, especially ones that are kind of just budding in the cybersecurity space, is that user has a local administrator, which is bad. That means if anyone executes malware, that user that got phished, they're getting local administrator access. That means they can dump usernames and passwords. They can get into pretty much anything that user had access to. That's not good at all. We want to get rid of that. So we want to see that only the administrators, only the people that actually need that high level access, that power, should have it. So we want to see that as well. Another thing that we'd like to see too with companies before they start doing a pen test is that they have some idea of the risks to their organization. And risks come in different flavors. A lot of times when we think about risks in cybersecurity, we're just thinking about the cybersecurity aspect of it. Now, if you have a really good CISO or VCIO, they should be identifying this for you. They should be looking at, hey, what are our major risks and how likely are they to occur, and have a great idea, because that's really what should be driving the budget of a more mature program. Is they actually know what the risks are. They know how much they are likely to impact operations, and they weigh the pros and cons of where they're going to put their budget when they're doing this. So risks are a really good place to start. So if we're talking about, hey, we're doing backups, we're doing MFA, which is another thing we'd like to see, MFA on external infrastructure. They're doing all these things. That means they're in a really good spot. They have an idea about risk. They are auditing their vendors. They're complying with any regulatory things they're doing. These are all great things that companies should be doing. And then they start thinking about a penetration test to start poking holes in their security program. Because that's really what a pen test is. A pen test is coming in there, it's testing your assumptions. It's testing the assumptions that everything you're doing is great and it's going to hold up against a real attacker. You're going to get a pen testing company in there like Tandem. We're going to get in there and we're going to show you where the holes are. Hey, you thought you had this thing where very few users could get to. Turns out anyone can get to it. We see that a lot. Hey, you think you have MFA on the external VPN? Well, we found a user that didn't have it that allowed us to get in. All these different things. That's where a penetration test comes in. 1 is testing your assumptions. 2 is looking for really complex attack pathways that vulnerability scans are just not going to get picked up. That's why we want to see a level of maturity. All right, so that's all the stuff for internal. So it's really about your maturity. You're taking security seriously. You're driving your own journey in the cybersecurity space. Second part is external pressures. So what I mean by this is anything that's coming from outside your organization forcing you to take some sort of steps. And the reason these are separate is because it doesn't really matter how mature you are. If you have a requirement you have to meet where it says you must have a pen test, you got to do it no matter what. Now, it'd be great if you were mature as well, but it doesn't matter. You got to do what you got to do. So one of these things we may see is the cyber liability insurance. This has become a bigger and bigger topic over time. And that's simply because insurance companies are trying to limit their risk. We just talked about risk a second ago. Well, they want to limit the risk that they're going to be paying out in the case of a breach. And the way they do that is they force their policy holders to take more steps and be much more active in cybersecurity practices. So it's less likely that they're going to have a breach, one. And when they do, it's not going to be as severe, which altogether makes it a lot cheaper to have these people as clients. So insurance is one thing you'll start seeing crop up, especially those with a lot higher limits. And you also see them, they may bring down premium. So you might find in some cases that you don't necessarily need one, but it may substantially reduce the premiums that you're paying as an organization. So two good reasons there in the insurance space to do it. Another area that we may see them in is in contractual space. So there's a couple of things in here. So one, it could be, we've seen it in legal in some cases where before they exchange data, before they exchange evidence, they're requiring that a security assessment's been done. And we've also seen where the ABA, the American Bar Association, is now recommending it as a best practice for a lot of law firms. And that's pretty interesting because what you'll see is that law firms are pretty small for the most part, and they wouldn't usually hit that threshold in terms of size of companies that we would normally give a pen test to. We definitely usually recommend other things, but law firms have a lot more access to sensitive things. And they're touching a lot more money, especially those that handle real estate. We've seen a lot of scams and a lot of phishing targets in the legal space for that. So it's really good that they have great workflows, processes, and cybersecurity practices in place to protect themselves. Now, another area that's kind of in the contractual place is mergers and acquisitions, M&A. And a lot of times what we'll see is that they're purchasing a company, right? That's what the whole point of the M&A space is. Hey, we're going to purchase this company. Well, one of the things that can be a big factor in terms of how much a company is bought for and how much someone's going to pay for it is, are we going to expect a breach or some sort of security incident on the backside here? And if there is, it could cost us a lot of money after the fact. So sure, we're paying, I don't know, maybe $100 million for this company, but they have a breach. And the cost of a breach could be $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 million. And they need to take that into account when they're looking at how expensive this company is going to be to their bottom line. So this is something we've started seeing in the space, is that before an acquisition is to occur, they'll get a pen test to see what they're getting. And another big area to think about here as well is if they are acquiring an organization that has a huge footprint on the internet, meaning an organization that does a lot of their work, a lot of their operations through a web front, a web store, if that store is a soft target, something that could be easily attacked, something that has a lot of vulnerabilities, that thing's ripe to be hit. And it's going to have a high chance that something is going to occur in the near future. That would be something they really need to look at. So it might not deter the acquisition, like stop it, but they may be paying a lower cost in order to offset the potential expenses down the road. And we have seen that there's some statistics out there that show some pen tests have reduced the cost of an acquisition because of that. So that's another piece in the contractual space we want to look at, M&A. All right, another piece here, compliance. Compliance is all over the place. I think we've seen really GRC taking off as a specialty in cybersecurity recently this year. And it is what it is. There's a lot of regulatory requirements, a lot of industry requirements that say, hey, you must have a penetration done on a regular basis. And a lot of these, if you look at the language, they're requiring it depending on how large and complex an organization is. So PCI is an example. If you're not doing that much in sales, you don't have to have a big, thorough pen test. But once you hit a certain threshold, and if you're doing a specific thing with that financial data, then you have to have one. So again, size. HIPAA is pretty much like that as well. They have a lot of language that says just that, depending on the size, depending on how much data you have. All that comes into play when they're making a decision on whether or not you should get a pen test. HIPAA is the same. So we don't expect a lot of small doctor's offices to be getting a pen test, but they probably should be getting vulnerability scans on a regular basis. They don't expect you to pay, say, your medical office, you're bringing in $3 million. They're not expecting you to pay $2 million for security, but they do expect you to take steps in order to protect that healthcare data. Other ones, banking, financial, Insurance Data Security Act. That's something we have in South Carolina. There's a lot out there. Just keep an eye out. If you have an industry that is heavily regulated, chances are you may have something there that's forcing the requirement on you. Talk with your security provider, talk with your IT manager, talk with your IT vendors, see if this is something you need to worry about. Now, besides that, there are a few other ones, but all I wanted to do was hit on the major drivers. So if you're at a point in your maturity of your cybersecurity program, you need one, where you're at the point where you need a deeper look at your workflows, your actual IT practices, and your security, you probably should get one. If you're looking at getting cyber liability insurance, maybe something to think about, or it may be required. If you're in the legal space, if there's a contract between you and another company, it may be required. And if you may be looking at purchasing other companies, this may be something to think about to reduce your risk of an impact to your bottom line. All right, so that's it for this video on when you should get a penetration test for your organization. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments below. And until next time, take care.